Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? Welcome to this Lighthouse book Club event. We are here to celebrate Olivia Thomakos' incredible collection of poetry, love, and other cancers. And here is Olivia Thomakos. So my name is Mohammed Tunsi. I'm one of the Lighthouse booksellers here, and I will be your MC this evening. And with us as well is Charlie Hilton, who is here supporting Olivia at the launch. So I'll just do kind of like a brief round of introductions, and then we will get to reading. First, we will hear Charlie read for a wee bit, then we will hear Olivia read from her collection, and then later on we'll have a brief Q&A, and then the mic will be turned over to you, so you can ask your own questions. So, Olivia Thomakos is an Ohio-born writer, teacher, and editor. Her poem, What You Wish For, won the 2022 Grierson Verse Prize. She is poetry editor of Origin Stories, an anthology of beginnings, and managing editor of Tiny Flames, Voices from Ukraine, both with Forest Publishing. Her poetry can be found in Gutter, Bethlehem, Breath Magazine, and elsewhere. That is amazing. You also did an MSc in creative writing at Edinburgh, right? Yeah, because that's how we met. Yeah. And Charlie Hilton is an Edinburgh-based writer and poet. His work has been printed in coin-operated press, Forest, Wilder Things, and Honeycomb, amongst others. He has also published a cookbook entitled No It's Alone, and spends his free time making vinyl prints. And Charlie, the floor is yours.
And thank you so much for braving the Edinburgh Sun as well to come and listen to some poetry. I'd just like to say how lucky you all are to be in the bookshop listening to some beautiful poetry this evening, when so many others, as we all know, around the world, having their lives and cultures systematically destroyed in the Israeli genocide in Palestine. I know I speak for Olivia when I say we both stand in solidarity with the Palestinian plight. Beyond that, I'd also like to thank Lighthouse Books. I've been aware of their work in coming here since they opened in 2016. So it's a huge honor to be reading here. And finally, I'm hugely grateful to Olivia as well. I first met Olivia nearly 2 years ago, reading at an event at Shore Poets at the Wash Bar. And it's really humbling to be able to introduce her tonight. So thank you, Olivia. Great time. I'm going to read some new poems, sorry, some old poems and some new ones. It's going to be 3 sonnets and then a couple of narrative pieces. The first one is called And So It Goes. I imagine that a tree must mourn the falling of her leaves, feel the bursting pain of every bud pushing through her gnarled exterior, knowing each moment of incipience and bloom is just one half of life's persistent cycle. And still, I find myself compelled to speak on things which defy all comprehension. The haunted repetition in Si tu vois ma mère, December, when the streets are slick from recent rain. We ask the waiter for a minute more, since we're busy talking about nothing in particular. Before the evening flickers in the candle, before we miss the last bus home, I have to walk back in the cold. This next one is called For Amy in the New Year. Sometimes I fear I will never understand you. At times you seem so perfectly childish, like snow on Christmas Day. At others you are impenetrable, behind a wall of oyster shells, champagne glasses, and some drunken tangent about your father falling down the stairs. The more I try to coax this out, the further you retreat. Don't you miss the simple things in life? Like an afternoon sitting by the river, feet dangling in the water, ice cream running down our fingers. There is laughter in the air, and the weather holds for a purple evening, as we barbecue and smoke cigarettes in the patio. Highly Mergia is playing, and you tell me all the chicken needs, a squirt of lemon, perhaps a pinch of salt. And the last of these sonnets is called Saying Goodbye. With these sonnets, I've been hugely influenced by Terence Hayes' American sonnets for my past and future assassins, which, beyond Olivia's book, if you're looking for another poetry collection, I would highly recommend that. It's a real incredible reinvention of the sonnet and really stretches the form to places you wouldn't imagine. So this is Saying Goodbye. Mostly you feel like a dream, something like a helium balloon slipping through childish fingers. And I'm hoping to wake once more on your sofa as Louis Theroux drifts mindlessly into the living room, both of us comatose, having eaten too much of the barley. It's easy to forget certain specific things, like evenings with fish and chips and Prosecco in bed, or the warmth of your unwashed fleece and your sweet-smelling hugs. And maybe it's just the kind of person I'll always be, wondering what happens to the dead pigeons as I struggle to keep them on Styria alive. I still walk through the tunnel beneath Hoxton Station, trying to relive our last conversation when you told me you loved me and hung up the phone. And I bought a Ribena from the kiosk as 2 trains passed over my head. And now for something a bit new. These are narrative poems which I've been taking influence from W.S. Graham, who was a fantastic Scottish poet from Ayrshire, and would also highly recommend checking his stuff out. This is The Nights Before the Summer. His wildest dreams are of discarded buildings, the concrete slabs of blocks of flats that cluster all around by Bedlam, like doctors examining a madman spread out on the table. It is spring, before the heat has driven us to madness, and the gaunt halls of empty windows stare out, passive eyes of anesthetized, lobotomized minds. And in the day, the sunlight pushes through the empty walls and corridors, like a surgeon's finger, poking, probing, squelching through the contours of the brain. And in these dreams, he wanders past the sun-bleached, whitewashed walls, reflecting ghostly in the street lamps, feet dragged through detritus and debris, crushed up cans and broken glass, wee baggies and cigarette butts, discarded by strange groups of strangers, the faceless faces of the night that laugh and talk and dance until the sunlight crests the hills, wherein these demons fade, like smoke cast on the wind, and he is left, staring out of vacant doorways, mouth hollowed out and dry, ears throb, redolent in the morning gleam, until the warden wakes him and he finds dust-blackened feet have marked the linen sheets. This last one is called The Beast from the East. The wind changed first, driving hard in from the east, ripped across the fell, carving through the sandstone farmhouse brick, pulling trellises from the wall. A mother's dog died in early afternoon, skull cracked between the unpegged gate and its creosoted post. By then, the sky was bruised and heavy. Father lumped the carcass on the midden, the yards scattering with straw and muck and shavings, the barn eaves creaking in the onslaught. Darkness fell, and the first flakes swirled, pirouetting orange in the lamplight, but steady and consistent as flour through a sieve. Come morning, it banked some 6 feet deep in parts, the year's crop caught in the land beneath the land, and the violent suffocation of the cold. Sheep frozen stiff within the drifts, the pantry deadened to a cavern, as one by one the pickling jars reflected ever ghostly lights. This blindness pressed in for months, with static on the wireless, horizons mingling in waves of off-white powder. The log shed dwindled, ice reached somehow beneath the draft excluder. The bookcase, bed frame, kitchen chairs began to laugh and cackle on the fire. The horse already stripped to bone, hunger resounding like a drum, and father shouting at young Jacob, "Shut up! Will you shut up?" The rest of us shivering in silence, mind blank to this perceived transgression. But all of that is later. That first evening was underscored by father's angry purple plumes of pipe smoke, and mother crying for that dead dog lying cold on a pile of pack and hay, sighing Tarka, oh, my poor Tarka, as all about the house the snow kept falling and the wind whistled in the lifeless cots. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. That was beautiful. And I think because you have some of your work published in Forest Cafe, Forest's Origin Anthology as well, which I think we have a few copies of it as well in the shop. So if you want to read more, you can read more. But now, to introduce Olivia Thomakos, who's going to be reading From Love and Other Cancers.
A little shorter than Charlie and Mo, if it's okay. First, I want to say thank you so much for coming. I feel very lucky to see you all here. And yeah, I'm also really lucky to have Mo and Charlie here. They're just people, I think, when I met them, I felt like I'd known them forever. So thank you so much. The first poem I'm going to read is the first poem of the pamphlet. It's called Easy As. He brought me flowers to the oncologists, but I didn't say it. Held me in my twin bed, in the grass on Calton Hill, in the tiny mountain cabin, and I didn't say it. This morning I wake facing him, eyes closed, face open. I try to count, 1, 2, 3, but I don't say it. Again, 1, 2, 3, nothing. We listen to music and artists sing it. I tell my flatmate when she teaches me Bollywood dance. I say it to my classmate bringing me coffee in the library. When I am studying all night and security reminds me to take a break, when the bartender draws dicks in my Guinness phone, I say it, I say it, I say it. When vitamins are 50% off, I say it to the cashier at Holland & Barrett and to flight attendants who promise I'll make my connection. But him, who never complains when I want his side of the bed, when I make a pillow of his arm and it falls asleep before him, who stays sober if I worry about my liver, and binges with me if I'm worried about everything else. My damn lips caving, I can hear my molars rattle. 1, 2, 3. I wanted to start with that one because I feel like it encompasses a lot of the collection, just about relationships and cancer or illness. Those things often come hand in hand. When you're sick, it's the people you love the most that take care of you. And it's also the people who can help you in challenging situations. The next one I want to read to you is when speaking to doctor gets you nowhere. Box, he says. Yes, dear, that's what you said. Red box. No, of course, reddish. It's a reddish box. See, I agree. But what if the box was just a square? He says. No, I know it's a box, but let's, for argument's sake, say it's a square. And let's say it's a blue square. No, dear, I know it's red, reddish, but what if it was blue? How would you make it red again? Yes, I'm asking you, since you're saying it's a reddish square. Yes, box. But sweetie, he says, we're pretending it's a blue square. So how would you make it red? Well, love, if you think the square is red, then you should know how to make it red if it's blue. I'll believe the red square, yes, the reddish box, is red when you can tell me how to make the blue square red again. Of course I agree, he says, but let's say instead of a square, it's a red circle. I feel like that one is applicable not just for doctors, but just maybe a lot of people in your life who make living hard. The next poem I want to read is the title poem of the pamphlet, and it's actually the last poem I wrote in totality before publishing the pamphlet. It's called Love and Other Cancers. We drive 2 hours to the hospital. Christmas tree crammed in the back, poor postured. We bend into our science books. Cancer, a word that comes from crab. From the way its shell sits, clawed legs crawling, the polyps look like mushrooms, sprouting inside the hollowed out log of his colon. His neck swells in mammotus clouds, gaze holds a single ceiling tile. We bless our hospital pasta, try to tame the many tentacled spaghettis. Polyp stems from the word for octopus, but these shapeshifters can't communicate like mycelium roots. His message was lost in translation. Somewhere a neuron mistook go for grow. The temporal lobe listened. Benign has many origins. Benevolent, generous, tender, gentle, kind. This well-to-beget tumor sounds beneficent, but resembles a beast budding head after immortal head. Hydras began to grow tumors hundreds of millions of years ago. By discarding apoptosis, evolution's greatest gift is a cell that won't commit suicide. Now surgeons split his navel like firewood, his skull boasting trails of bone saws. The doctor promises there's no pain. The worst part is the sound. We drive home in silence, a word that used to mean, be still. I think like musicality is something that's really important in my life. And Charlie just read me a poem actually where they were dealing with silences. And I think the poem kind of personified silence and its desire to hear its opposite. So I love that idea of just, the importance of both what we can make, whether it's poetry or music, but also the importance of the silence that comes with that. This poem is called Whole Rest. Trees applaud against my window as storm clouds sew up the sky. This is what your grandmother meant when she taught you how to line up fabrics. Fit edge to edge like ledger lines. Seam stitches like cursive loops and cross T's followed by the rest. You hear my pauses in the line breaks. Maybe I've always been music. My pen's piano keys all along, and you, the loneliest note on the page. An upside-down top hat crushed in your hands, you never learned to rest. From allegro to prestissimo, you push the metronome to its limit, the needles back and forth turning impatient, as knots form in the fabric back. The gnarled roots of a cotton tree can't be restored without ripping stitches. Thunderclaps keep you company like music, following the lightning right on time. You live in crescendo, discarding the thimble your grandmother gave you for snapping needles, your blood turning the sewn sky red before you tell me how this should sound. Can you hear it? The clouds are singing. I also want to thank you for coming in the rain. I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, a welcome day for the launch of my book. Yes, I really appreciate it. The next poem I'm going to read was a spoken word poem by Sabrina Bunaim. And during the lockdown, when I was in Ohio with my parents, I was listening to a lot of Button poetry. And her poem, The Truth Has Three Sides, was really special to me. And I just spent a lot of time trying to mimic the poem somehow because I thought it was so impressive. So I would recommend listening to her version, but this is my poem after Sabrina Bunaim's The Truth Has Three Sides. 1. I make plans. I fall asleep with pens in my bed, calendar bookmarked 3 years out. I love children, but struggle to keep plants alive. I'm not sure where to call home. I'm afraid of needles, small veins severed too many times. Sometimes I try on other people's skin. At night, I chew my bottom lip till it's swollen, grind my teeth till my jaw is sore. I wasn't sleeping when I met you. I like the weight of books in my hands and piano keys under my fingers. I wish I could impress you with music like you impress me with courage. I called you from the clinic lot when the doctors heard my heart murmur. The day you said, we can do this. 2. You hate plans. You say we shouldn't travel together because you go with the flow, picking up your pack, leaving on a whim. You want a farm, a greenhouse with figs and purple sweet potatoes. You don't think you'd be a good father. You like taking your glasses off the bridge of your nose at the end of the day. You're calm in crisis, experienced from breaking almost every bone in your body. You say you like my poems, so maybe I'll write about how you hate your birthday or how scary movies make you laugh. One night, we were on the phone until your sunrise. You said you needed to listen to me talk, but the call dropped halfway through my knock-knock joke. When you can't sleep, you walk outside and stare at stars. You tell me you've been looking for refuge inside yourself for as long as you can remember. 3. I make plans, but you hate plans. You leave on a whim with your pack while I'm picking up my calendar bookmarks 3 years out. You say we shouldn't travel together because you go with the flow while I fall asleep with pens in my bed. You don't want to repeat the mistakes of your father, but children love you. And I love flowers and figs, but struggle to keep most things alive. You want a farm, to build a greenhouse, plant purple sweet potatoes. I'm not sure where to call home. Sometimes, in crisis, I try on other people's skin. At the hospital, I pretend to be calm like you as needles burst my veins. I'll help carry the weight of finding refuge inside yourself. With courage in my hands and books under my fingers, I can play music for you. Releasing piano keys like removing glasses at the end of the day. When you can't sleep, you walk outside. I wasn't sleeping when I met you. I chew my bottom lip till it's swollen, grind my teeth till my jaw is sore. But the night we were on the phone until your sunrise, you said you liked my poems, and I believed you. The doctors were wrong about the murmur. Unsurprised, I told them about you. Body healed a dozen times over, who sleepwalks to the stars, but always comes home to me. Let's read one more before we do the chat. This one is called Scuffle Step, and it's about the rain. But when I was writing the poem and it was being edited by my cohort members, I had a different title, and I just kept thinking about the sound of tap dancing and how it sounds like rain. And my mom is a tapper, so I was like, "What is a kind of tap dance that sounds like rain?" And she said the scuffle step. So we trust her because I'm not a dancer myself. So thank you to my mom for this title, Scuffle Step. My first night in Spain, it poured. I woke to water wrapping the patio stone and asked why someone in the building was tap dancing. You thought I was kidding. You were always one step ahead of me, so when you left, I didn't see it coming. We've been making plans for the future, your bookshelf, my bedstand, but somehow I didn't notice when you stopped saying, our garden. We fell in love in the margins of Catcher in the Rye. You were the one walking the streets at midnight. I was the one nobody believed. I don't know how many girls wake up in the night thinking about you, but I hope there's one less of us soon, because the rain outside my window isn't dancing anymore.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Can we have another round of applause, please? It occurred to me kind of partway through that this is actually the first time that I've ever heard you read out loud. So this has been very special, and especially kind of like for an occasion like this. So thank you for that. It was beautiful. And it is like an absolute honor to be hosting the launch event for this. It is an incredible collection. And I think I told you before that as soon as I was done reading it, I had to kind of like go back and just read through it again. And I guess kind of like just my first question is the most basic one, which is kind of how long did it take you to actually put all these poems together? You do know that you were kind of like writing towards a collection. You mentioned the MSc program as well.
Yeah. I wasn't writing toward anything in particular. A lot of the poems came during the MSc, and some of them were from before, and yeah, just a couple were written after the program finished. But yeah, during my study, I said something like, "I'm afraid I'll study and read too many poets and I'll lose my own voice." And I had a professor say, like, your voice will always be there. It's always going to be your words and the things that you're thinking about. And no matter what you write them, or if you're trying a different structure, a different form, it's always going to be you. So I really appreciated that. And yeah, when Sud Rhubarb did their open call for a collection, I think I looked for things that I could tell a story together with, and this is what came from that. Yeah.
I love that, and especially the idea of telling the story with the collection, because I mean, if you've read it as well, you will notice that it kind of like does move. It almost has a narrative form, and there are things and kind of places and emotions that appear and reappear and every time change. But I guess before we get into that, I wanted to ask about the choice of the title as well, Love and Other Cancers.
Yeah. Well, when I first came to Edinburgh in 2021, they found a cancer tumor in my eye. And I've had treatment, so I have no more cancer, but just slowly going blind in my eye because of radiation. So a lot of the poems deal with, I mean, doctors in general, because I've had my fair share, and people in my family have dealt with cancer or other illnesses. So a lot of the work stems from those experiences, but also I think the poems start to go into also the process of losing vision, and what that means to have now been a person without cancer, but still facing the everyday change of kind of you don't know what to expect every day. So that's where the poem started, and then the love and other cancers. I think it goes back to what I said in the beginning, and it's all about those relationships and how illnesses can change those relationships, but also bring out some really nice things in the relationships, because you really feel supported in a different way, and that can be very special. Mm-hmm.
Love that, and that sense of motion, I think, is something that really comes through the collection as well. I mean, as you've said, the kind of like musicality is very important, and that definitely comes through, especially as kind of like things recur, especially kind of we were talking before about kind of like the image of the needle, kind of like recurring and changing meaning throughout. There is a lot of motion, there is a lot of change kind of like throughout the collection, and that just comes across so beautifully. So I guess the question is, when you were putting it together as a collection and kind of like arranging it, kind of like, what was the thought process behind the sequence, I guess, of the poems?
I think because they were all written at such different times, I did want some sort of story to follow. Whether it's about the relationships you're following, or about the kind of personal change that is experienced, and also like the title poem, that one changed a lot. I think I mentioned to you from the beginning, and I just felt like that now kind of encompasses a lot of the work that's in the collection. It used to be a really different poem, with a different form and a different title, and during the editing process, the editor said, like, you just, there's something here, but you need to change it. Like, tell us what you want to say, and maybe drop the structure, which is really heartbreaking for a poet to hear. But it ended up being, one of the best experiences, and I think one of my favorite poems in the collection, because I just got to spend time with what I was trying to say in that piece, but then also I put all the rest of the collection together, and I also got to, I think, add some of that wholeness into the poem.
Amazing. So I'm curious, was the discussion about kind of like etymology of words in the poem, was that in the newer version?
Yeah, that one was just in the newer version. In the past version, I think because these experiences can be so personal, especially when it's your family. So, I can write about my own experience, and that's up to me. But when you're writing about family or other loved ones, sometimes you need a little bit of distance, I think. So when I first wrote that poem, I had written it in structure, I think, to give some distance. And then when I rewrote it, the etymology, I think, comes out as just a different way to still take a step back from the experience, but still talk about it. And yeah, I like what you had said earlier, just like how the poem has gone through a change. Yeah, just like you see the change in the cancer in the poem. Yeah. and you see the change in the word as well. That's so cool. I didn't know before I wrote it, and like Mo was telling me things I didn't know about my poems. Yeah.
It's like as you can see, I had just spent quite a bit of time reading and rereading them. But just because genuinely, kind of like once I got through them, I think revisiting the earlier poems, there were kind of like certain moments where I was like, oh, this, I see how kind of like this links back. So the poems very much are between themselves. So I very much kind of like see the narrative form going through all of it. And yeah, with the discussion of etymology, because I think it's also points to that thing of kind of like internal, external, which it feels like the poems negotiate a lot of that. There's always this kind of like running on an in-between sort of space. There's one poem that talks about, for example, it begins with a dream and talks about kind of like the earth feeling back like an orange. And then it goes into that, and obviously with the discussion of in needles, needle at one point with diving, it's kind of like pointing to like slipping almost into a dangerous zone after spending a bit too much time somewhere. And then obviously later on with regards to earth veins. So yeah, it's absolutely amazing. But I guess how did you kind of like was the exploration of the internal versus external? Did that feel deliberate, or did that also kind of like come through?
Yeah, I think that's just something that kind of happens from when, yeah, I think when you're sick, you want to distract yourself with stories. And yeah, I just finished this book called Kuku, and she's talking about her sick sister and how when she reads the story, her sister doesn't seem very sick anymore because her sister is just thinking about the story. And especially the poem about the needles. I was having blood drops, but I was extremely dehydrated, and I started having a panic attack. And my mom said, just to calm my breathing, she's like, pretend you're scuba diving, which is something you really have to control your breath. And it sounds silly, but it worked. And yeah, that's kind of how that poem came about. And I think a lot of the work, because it's dealing with things that are so intimate, it's almost easier to, you have some of that internal, but then you're also looking at the external to be a break. You look at the dream because it lets you escape the reality that you're in. But you can never actually escape that moment. So I think it just naturally, both of those things coincided for me in a lot of the work. And again, I didn't realize that I did it so much. So now that you said it, I think a lot of the pieces do have that struggle between which reality you're going to pay attention to, if it's the reality you're living or the reality you wish you were.
Also, this is just a wee warning, and after this question, I'm going to turn over the mic to you to get your questions ready. But yeah, but just on that point, because, and again, kind of like returning to the etymology of words and kind of like being surface level and kind of like that in between us, I feel like the very last poem and the last lines, there's a bit of repetition, and there's a talk about kind of like, what is the line? Obfuscation.
I think no glass clarifies the obfuscated page.
Yeah, and it just feels like this collection just very much does that. And then kind of the lines after that with the repetition that I have seen, just follows through on kind of like sense of change and that narrative form. But yeah, and now on to you. If you just raise a hand and call out the question, and I'll repeat it back as well. People online? Or do we have any questions online as well?
Okay. Thanks, Olivia. That was amazing reading. It was really cool to hear you talk about the relationship between music and poetry, and also really nice to see the notation on the page in that poem. Could you talk a bit about the decision to do that, to kind of bring music visually into the pieces, and then also about your musical influences, who you're into.
Yeah, so the poem Whole Rest, I just kept, when I was writing it, I kept picturing how the music looks on the staff, because I grew up playing the piano since I was 7, and I started playing the guitar when I was 16, and singing in the church band, so yeah, so music has always been really important to me, but especially reading music, because I'm horrible at just jamming. I have to read the music, as you can tell from the very type A poems. But yeah, I think I was working with Stuart, the editor, and I just kept saying, kind of, the poem wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be, and I wanted people to feel the music a little bit more than just the words. And he's like, just put the musical notation in. He's like, oh, brilliant. So it was his idea. I have to give him credit for sure. But after he said it, I just felt like the poem was more complete with the new notation inside. Because you can say crescendo, but when you see the crescendo, it feels different if you're a musician. And you can say the word pause, but when you see a musical pause, that means something about the time that you spend pausing. And yeah, you can't always do that in words. And yeah, right now I've been listening to the Bleachers a lot. Yeah, especially their cover of the song "Hole of the Moon," which I think is written by a Scottish musician.
Thank you so much for that. Any more questions? Yeah.
Hi. I know in so does it like it's like you that working on the people like how do you feel about that?
I'll just repeat the question for people online, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of like. But so the question was, how does it feel to actually have someone read your poetry kind of like very differently than you might have anticipated, and yeah, if it's just how does that feel? How does that land for you?
Yeah, I think it's really nice. I love that 20 people can read something, especially something that's mine. That's amazing. And see something different in it, because, well, I knew with the collection, for example, the Doctor poem. That's the best example I can give, because when I first read it, I was just frustrated with a guy, and I retitled this poem so many times because I just felt like this is an experience you can have in a lot of different spaces. And then I was like, oh yeah, I've had doctors who don't listen to me, or who tell me I'm saying something that I'm not. So I can read the poem different ways. So I really love that other people can also take something unique from it. And I love hearing it too, because I know that when I'm reading other people's poetry, and sometimes novels as well, or short stories, I'm seeing something different every time based on what I'm experiencing or what I'm reading. And I think that's part of the magic of literature. It gets to be something different for you every time you come back to the page. Thanks for the question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Shannon.
Hi, Pradisha.
Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations, Olivia. I've had the privilege of being in Olivia's class and seeing a lot of these poems turn into what they are now, and there's a huge difference from where we begin and where it goes. And to go through this like profound human experience that a lot of people don't until much later in life, process that and turn that into art. Does that cohere with the editorial process as well? Because you're working with really intense things, and then there's the structural aspect of it. Have something to say about that?
So the question was about just having seen Olivia work on these poems just over a long period of time. How does it feel to actually go through an editorial process as well, where there's like another level of change that's being enacted there by someone else? And yeah, how was that experience for you?
Yeah, I think because it is something personal, sometimes it can be hard. But when you're writing poetry in general, it's usually quite personal. So no matter what is happening with the editing process, usually there's something you're like, oh, I don't want to change that, or this means something special to me. And I know for mine, like dealing with illness, dealing with cancer, that is something that maybe people consider more sensitive. But I think sometimes it can just help you look at it in a different way. Like you get to take a step back from the experience and you're just editing words. And sometimes that's nice, to just be able to, yeah, I don't know, you're looking at your grief in a new light, and you're making it something beautiful, which I think you don't always get a chance to do. So yeah, editing the book was challenging, but I'm really happy with it now, and I think I'm just more excited than anything to be able to share it with people. Thanks for your question.
Thank you. Any more questions? I thought I saw another. Yes.
Hi, well done. Who did you mostly bounce ideas off and discuss and kind of get feedback from? Who was the person that you kind of, took on this journey with you?
That's a good question. Well, like I said before, my cohort helped me so much. Like a lot of these poems were workshops, and during my master's for creative writing, professors gave me excellent feedback. A lot of these were in my dissertation, which Miriam Gamble gave me a bunch of really great feedback. So a lot of what you see is because of that. But yeah, when I had the panic about the poem that I needed to remove the structure, one person from my cohort, her name is Tamara, I sent her the poem and she really tried to give me some advice on how to make it better with the structure. And finally I said, I need to take away the structure, don't I? She's like, I didn't want to say it, but you said it. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry you spent so much time giving your feedback. But yeah, she was really, really helpful for me when I was in that pinch. So I appreciate her help with that. Thanks for your question.
Thank you. Any more questions?
When's the next book out?
To be determined.
And actually, how does it feel now that it's coming out into the world? Like how have you been?
Good. I mean, I just got back to Edinburgh from the US 2 days ago because I was in my high school best friend's wedding. So it feels a little delirious, but I'm not sure if it's the book or the jet lag. Yeah.
Especially with the weather today as well.
Yeah.
It's just not helping. Yeah.
The adrenaline is really keeping me going.
Yeah. Any more questions? Well, we still have a bit more time for a few more readings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll read a few more poems.
Yeah,
That's
go.
I'll stand up so it's hard to see in the back. And thanks again for being here. It really does mean a lot to me. Yeah, this poem is called Night Hunt, and it started because I was discussing with a friend about, I live really close to Cowgate, and I was talking about the lads. And if you're a girl who has walked alone, or anyone who's walked alone down the Cowgate, you know the lads, and you might fear the lads. I know I feel uncomfortable when I see them. And I was just talking to her about just like, yeah, this almost animalistic experience of, walking down the Cowgate and seeing people kind of acting like animals. So if you like collective nouns, this poem has a lot of them. It's night hunt. A shiver snaps. Circles a girl flexing her bait-like body. Swarms of frats pledge to shoot their shot, even if it stings. Fall into step with the army crawling through the bar. Every night's the same. A cackle, a shadow, an ambush, scouting an open bed. Chirping hens flock in charms, while men gather in murders, unkindnesses. Swooping claws grab at shiny objects, shimmering under the laser lights. A tower walls the bar, blocks a black and white striped stench from securing drinks. Across the street, a pride squares up to a conspiracy. Pandemonium in colored shirts, the descent of wooden peckers. Thank you to Miriam for that last line. It's just, it's home. This next poem, it's written about a Scottish woman who was accused of being a witch. And she's one of the people that they now base a lot of historical witch, I guess, lore over, because when they said, "You're a witch," she's like, "Yes, I am." And here's all the witch things I do. And I at first thought she was so cool. But I was also thinking about, as a person, we're often remembered by one thing. And that's what people talk about you, even if you might not always think of that thing as being a defining thing about yourself. And I was also thinking a lot about the idea of womanhood and repetition, which does show up a lot in the pamphlet. And just about these things we do every day that are so important to us in this moment, but maybe not the thing remembered. Yeah. So this is after Isabel Gowdy. This morning, I refuse to hear birdsong. They edit out the best parts of my life until I am anybody. Wear, wash, hang, release. I'm starting to think I never asked for enough. My bent back cracks like kindling, a bruise blooms purple on my thigh, and I'm the only one who knows. I back dive into the future, pulling at my ankles, and somewhere a light flickers off. The past stretches exposed in front of me as I trip backward, uncertain where the road will end. Bash, wear, hang, release. Somewhere, a father stokes a fire, and ash-dancing toddlers learn the word burn. Buzzards stalk sisters at their basins as vultures prepare to feast. Wash hair, braid, release. I choose to learn the ropes. Daughter of a daughter of a daughter, the dark circles and crow's feet belong to us. We, who have always been we. Watch our feet dance in the open air and know it's for our charms, our working whistle, our anxious giggle, the way we toss back our hair. I really wanted to end on an action with that poem because I just thought it's important to have the woman doing the thing. I don't want it to be something that's ending, but something that's continuing. This is the last poem I have. I hope the time is okay. Okay, great. This is the last poem in the collection. It's called Losing Vision in the Shower. And at first I had the title all in capital letters, and my editor said, "Why?" But I just thought, for me, it was just, it looks like just words, but it means a lot more. So that's why it was in capitals. But we have since taken away some of the capitals. So that's just for you to know. If I could look away, I would. But I know this may be the last time. Tomorrow I'll see less. Amethysts will mute, their shimmers burn my eyes, or worse, they will not shine at all. One day, with my right lid closed, I'll feel the wind, wet, imagining pinwheels in the rain. It's quiet here. My spine to the light, fluoride water falls translucent, just flicks of white, twinkling, warm, but turning, illuminated from behind, a change. White and violet curtain tinsel shot with glitter, like sun reflections on a rippling lake, or dancing fairies dancing Propo in Kainama's angel. Will I be first to hear the trumpets? Vibrations deepen, vision dulls. What if angel song is water spraying time-worn rocks? In the end, will I hold the scales, the sword, or like a sandworm, will I burrow, sharpen my extra teeth, iron on iron, bone on bone? I don't know if it's worse to know color or to never have known it at all. For shapes to soften bit by bit or to disappear all at once. No glass clarifies the obfuscated page, this cumulito night. They say, blessed are those who have not seen yet believe. But I have seen, I have seen, I have seen.
Thank you so much, Olivia. That was absolutely beautiful. Can we have another round of applause, please?
I just want to say some thank yous before we go. And I wrote it down because I forget. Thank you. First, I just wanted to echo Charlie and say that we are very lucky to be here tonight. And I do also stand in solidarity with the Palestinian struggle with Palestine. I wanted to thank Lighthouse for hosting this event, to Mo for hosting as well. It was so special to have you here, and to Charlie for supporting me again. I really appreciate it, and I love to hear you read. A round of applause for Charlie, please. I wanted to thank Duncan and Charlie at Studio Bar for, just for believing in my work and publishing this book. To Stuart Sanderson for the edits. I know I was talking, the one poem tonight, but the rest of it, even that poem too, he did such a nice job, and it wouldn't be what it is now without him. I want to thank my cohort and my professors because, all of this is what it is as well because of their time and energy and feedback. And also, most importantly, I think to my friends and my family and all of you guys who came tonight, I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you're here. So thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you again, Olivia. Thank you again, Charlie. And thank you to all of you for your wonderful questions, for being here, for braving the rain. And another round of applause, please. Now, before anyone gets up, I will, Olivia, just to go past. So, just to go to the signing station, you can get your book signed. So, and thank you again.